Well, Sarah, thank you so much for being here with me on the Entrepreneurial Success Podcast. I am so excited to have you there. For those of you that don't know, I'm just going to share it out loud. Sarah was a client of mine, and I decided when she approached me that it would be amazing to have her here on the podcast because she's got tons of value that she's going to share with us here today. But before we dive in there, Sarah, why don't you introduce yourself to the audience and tell us what you do?
Please. Thank you very much for having me, Han. Yes, as you mentioned, I used to be one of your clients and I loved it. So nice to meet you all. I'm Sara and I'm originally from Italy. I moved to London 6 years ago. When did it happen? But it was, 6 years ago. And I'm super pleased to say something about my job, which comes from a strong passion in styling and in what I always describe the right fashion, because fashion is a huge topic, especially nowadays. Almost everybody, talks about fashion, but how can we actually enjoy fashion properly and focus on the right clothes and the right fashion? So, as I said, I'm Sara, and I introduce myself as a style interpreter. So I help my clients to interpret their needs, priorities, their everyday lives, their routines into clothing, into the right clothes, because everybody deserves wearing the right clothes.
Yes, and I love that. But I'm a little bit more intrigued as to your story. Now, obviously, personally, I know your story, but I think the audience here would love to know your story as well, because you just mentioned you are from Italy. And by the way, we are filming this while she is in Italy. Lucky girl. But tell us a little bit about your story. What made you feel that, hey, fashion is the thing that I want to do? Fashion, this is going to rhyme, but fashion is my passion.
So is my passion. Oh my God, that's a really interesting marketing message.
Great tagline. Use it.
Yes, you know what you do actually, Han. So the thing is, I've been styling, especially women, since I remember. I still remember when I was in my 20s, working, collaborating with my friends, coming over and asking for advice. Sara, I have a date. What do you reckon? Sara, I put on weight. What do you reckon? And for me, it was like, okay, let's do it. And they were looking at me like, how do you do it? Why this looks good on me? And I was completely lost, because that's the point, right? I started looking at styling as a tool. It came from a kind of intuition. And I have to be honest, all the sustainability, ethical bit that we'll talk about a little bit, later, it came from my mom. She doesn't like when I mention her, during a kind of a story, but it's true. She comes from a generation where if you don't like it, ask someone else. He might likes, So that kind of rotation, that kind of circular economy, this is how the experts actually call it now. Again, I grew up with that. So when I moved to London, the capital of secondhand, one of the most important capitals, in the fashion world, I was like, maybe it's time for me to put all these pieces together, all the puzzles, and try to move from fashion to profession. So I got my qualification at the London School of Styling, and I became officially a fashion and personal stylist. And I started, all those kind of crazy, glamorous events behind the scenes, London Fashion Week, and the catwalks and the photo shoots, and it was so beautiful, but not really what I wanted, to do. Because my idea was styling should be a tool, as I said, and should help everybody, not just if you are thin, beautiful, and tall.
Yes. Yes. And I love that. And you know what? Every time I hear your story, it just brings me back to how we all grew up with fashion as an idea. And, I know for a lot of people that fashion is just one of those things that rich people do. But in so many ways, you know, fashion is not just about the icon itself. There's so much more to it, and how we use it as well ourselves. And I think this is what we're going to talk about here a little bit, because yes, we're all in business, and yes, we are businesswomen, and yes, we are women here watching this podcast interview or watching the video, or listening to the podcast interview, watching the video. But at the same time, we do want to feel good about ourselves. And this is where fashion becomes the tool on how to do it. Absolutely. So let's talk about your philosophy. You've got a beautiful philosophy that we're going to share here with everybody. And you call this your super values. Now, when we use the word super, it's not just because of the word super, it's because you basically break down the word and use that as an abbreviation for everything that you're going to share with us today. So if we look at super, the S in particular, you say that you use it as sustainability. Talk to us a little bit about sustainability in the fashion industry, but also your value and your focus around that.
Okay, so as you said, being super, you know, I try actually to make the super, you know, feeling and looking super. And I like the fact that you have mentioned feeling. Fashion should helps us to feel, not just look good. So it's an inside out perspective. Having said that, in my personal opinion, feeling super, it doesn't mean being, I mean, having those kind of not human power or not human, how to say, behavior, right? Like a superhero. That's not my idea. Super means being really human and really regular. And I don't want to say normal because it's a little bit, I would say more regular person, you know, you're everyday person. So sustainability, going back to the S of super, it's something that everybody talks about sustainability nowadays. And unfortunately, there's a lot of greenwashing out there, right? So we have to be a little bit careful on who is talking about sustainability. So sustainability starts from sustain your needs. It should sustain your needs. So it's not just buying sustainable clothes or buying sustainable food or whatever, you know, resources. Let's put it this way, sustainable resources, you know, which is a bigger picture. But if they don't sustain what you really need, I'm sorry to break this idea, it's not sustainable. It's a sustainable resource, but it's not going to be sustainable for you, for your life, for your needs, for your priorities. So that's why I always like breaking down a little bit of stereotypes when it comes to sustainability and sustainable fashion. The most sustainable clothes, people, are the ones you already have in your wardrobe. That's it. Because they can literally sustain your needs and priority. How? Well, it's a long story, but and it's a process. But this is the meaning of sustainability for me.
Yeah. And I agree with you 100% because we've had some great conversations about this in the past, you and I anyway. But it does come back down to people going, I've got nothing to wear. I don't know what to wear today. And yet they look at their wardrobes and they've got tons of stuff folded up, hanging everywhere. And yeah, I think we've all been there. We can all relate to it.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
But it does come back down to that sustainability, I think, again, because there were some really crazy statistics out there, and maybe you'll get into this, but some crazy statistic out there as to how many pieces of clothing are actually ending up on landfill. And that in comparison to just daily waste, oh gosh, I'm not going to put figures out there because I don't know what they are. But when I heard it the first time, I was gobsmacked. I couldn't believe how many pieces of clothing people are throwing away and what they're actually doing to the landfill.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I think sustainability comes back down to us just being a little bit more of right mind and thinking a bit more consciously about us just buying things for the sake of buying.
Yeah.
But then also thinking about what we already have and can we actually utilize and use that better?
Absolutely.
So yeah, big question there.
Absolutely. There's a figure that impressed me a lot, the first time, a long time ago, when I read it. When I moved to London, I realized that 20%, I mean, on average, a woman in UK just wears the 20% of what she owns. People, 20% means that if you own 100 pieces, let's make it easier, you keep wearing just 20. If you're lucky, 25 pieces out of that. So where's the point of keep buying new clothes? And believe me, it's not being against, the growth of the economy. That's not the point, because sometimes, people say, yes, Sarah, but if people don't spend money, especially now in this quite interesting, situation we are facing, the economy is not going to grow. No, that's not the point. The point is, especially in this situation, we should start from where we are. We should focus on our resources and buy what we really need to fill the potential gaps we have, looking at our resources first.
Yeah. It's a very, very good point. Let's move over to the you. So the you of your super values, basically, is uniqueness.
It's
and
unique.
I do love this. So talk to us about uniqueness and how you see that.
So, despite of what fashion, the fashion system and these beautiful ideas, fashion based on trends, based on what is good, the color of the year, the trend of the year, whatever of the year, we should focus on a specific idea when it comes to beauty, when it comes to sizes, when it comes to anything out there. Unfortunately, this means I will lose my uniqueness. I will lose the connection actually between what I want to achieve as a person and the way I want to introduce myself as a person, as a woman, as an individual, as a human being, and the message. Because I have to focus on what is trending.
Yeah.
This means that I'll be, honestly with you, wearing the same clothes 1,000 people, million people will wear because it's trendy. So where is the uniqueness over there? What is your personality? What is your identity? These are all really interesting topics, especially with the gender fluid, topic growing up a lot everywhere, not just in the UK. Finding this connection with your identity, who you are, how you want to introduce, as I said, yourself into the world, the message you want to communicate, personally and professionally. All of that is extremely connected with clothes and fashion.
Yeah. And I think also in another way, looking at uniqueness when it comes to fashion is, and I think, especially for the younger generation, I know the older generation as well a little bit, but especially for the younger generation, because of the way they want to be perceived out there in the open on social media, there's a very thin line here where they start comparing themselves to the fashion industry, to the models, all those kind of things. And yes, talking about weight and size, that has always been an issue, and we know that. But I think, if we start educating people a lot more about concentrating on your uniqueness, what makes you different and you stand out, then we wouldn't be comparing ourselves so much to other people, other fashions, other models, all of those kind of things.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And you're right. I mean, teenagers, on one side, I have to be honest, Gen Z, because they call it, themselves, we are millennium, they are Gen Z. They look at fashion in a very interesting way, because they know that something wrong is going on right now. In terms of wrong, I mean, as you said, the landfill. Fashion is the second most polluted, actually, industry, in the world after oil. We didn't know that. When I was a teenager, when I was in my 20s, and Zara, came to my hometown, and I started feeling, oh my God, yes, now I can really look like carrying Sex and the City and whoever, you know, because I don't have to go to Milan. I don't have to go to wherever, because fashion came to me. We didn't have any clue of the issues, you know, how to say, linked to fast fashion. They know a little bit better nowadays.
Yeah, it's become a lot more public now as well. Let's talk about the P. So the P is the next one in your super values. The P in particular, you talk about the personal approach. And I'm a little bit curious as to what this means, because, you know, when we look at a personal approach, it could really kind of link a little bit maybe with your uniqueness. But tell us a little bit about that P and what that exactly means for you.
Absolutely. Personal is it's extremely linked to uniqueness, and personal is your extremely personal way to be you, which is you. So you can't actually, you should not compare. It's all about stop comparing, yourself with someone else. If that comparison works and brings, how to say, a kind of joy into your life. So it's not, I'm not good enough because I'm not like her, because apparently she represents, you know, the beauty system. She's beautiful because she fits perfectly into that kind of cage, let me say. It's not going to be unique and personal, no. And you will lose the control, you know, of your personal resources, needs, and priority day by day.
Yeah.
And one day, every time, I mean, when I start working, especially with my lovely ladies, 40 plus or 45 plus, that are menopause hits, and they say, I don't know who I've been in these 25 years, 30 years. And now my body is completely different. I put on weight, I have hot flashes, I hate the figure I see in my mirror. Who is this person? I lost completely track. So that's why it's extremely important to start from early age, you know, to develop this connection with yourself, with your personal needs and your uniqueness.
Yeah. And I think it's so important as well. It's very true what you're saying there, because, you know, for a lot of women in particular who are reaching or are in that menopause phase, they're getting to a point where they go like, I've just been giving and giving to my family, and I've not been actually looking after myself.
Oh,
and
yeah.
I've seen this happen so many times. I've met numerous women who say the exact same thing. And I know that some people here in my audience are of that kind of age now, that range, have experienced it, and they go, yes, that is exactly me. That is how I felt. But I think, you know, even for them, it's still not too late to go back and feel that, hey, I can still look at sustainability. I am unique and I know what my uniqueness is. And also I have that personal approach in how I do things, but also in particular, because we are talking about fashion, how do you approach fashion? How do you see it? How do you personalize it for yourself? So I love how you're putting it all together. And I think everybody here would just be shaking their heads going, yes, that's me. That's me. Let's talk about the E then. So the E is the ethical approach, the ethical causes basically that we're looking for as well. What is your take on that?
So ethical for me means you pick a cause, you know, it could be small, medium, big, it doesn't matter. But you try to help, you know, with your time, with your money, with your effort, whatever, that kind of cause. So I'm glad to say that I'm one of the core stylists at Dress for Success London. And I love the message, the mission they have. Dress for Success is an international, huge base in America, and then they spread it out, you know, everywhere in the world. So Dress for Success means that we deal with women who completely lost themselves because of quite challenging reasons in their lives, personally and professionally. So when they decide to go back to the workspace, right? Because at some point you want to restart your life. And this means, okay, I'm ready to restart working. But as you can imagine, after 20 years, violence or whatever happened in your life, you're not really, your self-confidence, self-esteem is not really at the top. So you need a lot of help. So we provide help, from different perspectives. And I have the pleasure to help them from a conscious styling perspective. So we got a lot of donations from amazing companies that trust, the mission, and we help them with CVs, with interviews and clothing. So this is for me ethical. You pick a cause and you go for it. You try to help, to help someone else. And I can tell you, I got a lot from those people. Oh my God, I love my ladies, seriously.
But I love that way of approach as well. And I think, this is something we can take not just for the fashion industry, but for every way of life. For us as business owners in particular, if we can choose something that is ethical, aligned with us, whether it's a cause, whether it is, working, spending the hours, donating money, like you said, whatever that is. But if it is something that is ethical, that is aligned with you and you're giving back to your community in some way, yeah, why not? I mean, number one, it helps other people, but also you feel good because you're doing something amazing for the community and for people out there.
It could be swapping your clothes. It could be renting your clothes, going back, to the core of our discussions, I mean, sustainable fashion has so many, so many levels. You can be sustainable, you can improve, your sustainable approach as a consumer in so different ways. It's not just, that's the point. I would like to make people open to different options, not just buying sustainable. Because if you keep buying, again, it's over-consuming and overproduction, and that's not sustainable.
Mm. Yeah, no, I really do like that approach. And it makes me think a little bit of, how we are doing things anyway as business owners. Completing the values, the super, we're now going to the R. So the R, I think, is a big one. And this is responsibility. And I think taking responsibility and being a responsible consumer, user of fashion is a big one.
Oh,
Tell
yeah.
us how you feel about that.
It's a big one, but it's also joyful, let me say, because you feel aligned, you have this kind of, you follow that kind of path. So being responsible, ethical, and everything you have mentioned, I can tell you, I promise you, it's easier than what it might sound. Because you don't have, first of all, you don't have to do everything in one go. This is relief. You can just start from one step, but keep doing it. That's being responsible for me. You sign a kind of agreement with yourself, with the community, with the person you want to help. It doesn't matter. And that's one step, and you keep going on that. And then when you will find yourself completely comfortable with that, it's going to be you saying, you know what, Sara, let's do something else. Okay, step number one, done. Step number two, let's start with step number two. So that's why I love breaking all my job, actually, in styling. It's breaking stereotypes. I love breaking stereotypes myself. It's complicated. It could be challenging. It could be a little bit hard and uncomfortable. But once you go through that, everything is easier. And you will see the result straightforward. This is the point. I like when fashion gives you results. Day to day, you can easily understand those results and implement, them day to day. The fashion industry actually makes everything a little bit more complicated. I tell you, it's not. It's a message, but it's not. Everything is much easier than the idea you might have in your mind.
Yeah. No, I love that. And I love how you've broken even just this down, into your philosophy, using the super as an analogy and then using those abbreviations in order to explain this. And I think a lot of people are sitting here taking note and going, yeah, I need to think a little bit more about being responsible and being sustainable with my clothes. And let's face it, ladies, we all have a huge closet full of stuff. And on most occasions, you wouldn't even remember what's in the back of that closet.
Oh, yeah.
I put my hand up because I am there as well.
I was
But
there.
but I think, this beautifully completes to everything that you've shared here in a way where you want us to make, how can I say this? You want to make us think about how we are showing up with our clothing, but also how we're using it as a tool for our uniqueness, with our personal approach, but also doing it ethically. Absolutely. Being responsible and being sustainable with it at the same time. But we're not finished, because in order to make it very easy for everybody to start looking at that big wardrobe, you are offering a free online wardrobe edit. And I know when I hear online, I'm going, is that even possible? People, it is. I've seen it happen, and Sara is amazing at doing this. So Sara here is offering, for those of you listening right now, and you're thinking about that big wardrobe and that you don't even know what's going on in some parts of your wardrobe, she's offering you a free online wardrobe edit. All you need to do is go down to my show notes, go and click the link there to go and book a session with her. Tell us a little bit, Sara, about what they can expect with this free online wardrobe edit.
So it's going to be 1 hour, and it's going to be starting from the basics, because that's the point. We start from the basics, and the basic is, do you really acknowledge, you have ever acknowledged your body shape? Where's the point with body shape and wardrobe? Everything starts from you, as we said. If you acknowledge where you are in terms of body proportions and body shape, you will stop looking at your wardrobe as an enemy. You will start actually looking at that as my ally. So this means that you will start looking at that 80%. Oh, so it's not because this is too small or too big. It's just because it was the wrong, let me say, style for my body shape, which is different than, say, the trousers is wrong. That's not the point. Nothing is right or wrong. It's just finding a connection, the right communication between you, the protagonist, and the wardrobe who is going to serve you. That's the point. You will learn simply how to make actually your wardrobe your best ally.
I know. And I think so many women's ears are pricking up now, because they're like, yes, I want to do this. So as I mentioned, if you want to go and have a free online wardrobe edit with Sara, the link is below in my show notes. And I would highly suggest you just give yourself the time. I mean, it's an hour of your time, which is going to possibly make one of the biggest differences, for you personally with your confidence, but also thinking a little bit differently about how you're going to use clothes and what works for you and what doesn't work for you. And then in addition to that, if you want to connect with Sara differently, her website details are below in the show notes as well. You can send her a message through there. And also her LinkedIn and Instagram details are in the show notes. And trust me, you are going to connect with her on Instagram, because her reels are amazing. I am hooked on them. So by all means, feel free to get in touch with Sara and book that free online wardrobe edit. You are going to love it. And if you don't feel like that is something you want to do just yet, which I think you're a little bit crazy if you don't want to take on this offer, by all means, just at least connect with her on social media and check her out. She is really good at what she does. Oh my gosh, Sara, this has been amazing. I absolutely love just having this conversation with you, because even for me personally, I feel like I learn so much from you every single time. And it's given me personally that confidence to go and look at some things in my wardrobe. I know every time we've had a conversation, I just feel so excited. It's like, oh my gosh, I learned something new. I want to go and, execute it and see it take shape in my wardrobe. But I just wanted to thank you so much for being here and sharing this with the audience. And thank you so much for making that free online wardrobe edit available. I think everybody's going to jump on it.
Thank you very much for having me. And people, as Hen said, get in touch. I love talking and whatever, sharing anything you might need when it comes to make fashion our best friend, because this is the point. Clothes are extremely important. They're not superficial, as someone might think. They should, they need, they must help us to feel and look great.
And that's what we all want. We want to feel and look great every day. Who wouldn't want that, right? Oh my gosh. Again, Sara, thank you so much. For those of you listening, by all means, go down to the show notes, and then we will see you again very soon. Thank you, Sara. Speak soon.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you.